start by introducing the panel members. Each one of them will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves and their companies and their unique perspective and recommendations. After the introductions, there will be a question and answer period. And I hope that we don't exceed 1 minute, to answer those questions, so give people an opportunity so we can have a conversation here today. Now that we started, let's start with indicating that for those of you who are not familiar with this, you should look at the Puerto Rican business report prepared by the Centro de Estudios Puerto Riqueños. This will serve as a backdrop to our conversation here today. This morning, I understand that you saw in the presentations some charts that highlighted some of the trends that are taking place in our community regarding business. We are the fastest growing, that was as 1912, the fastest growing business sector in the country. When you look that we're only 1%, that might be a lot, but the fact that we're the fastest trend is very significant. Another significant trend is that the Puerto Rican businesswoman is the largest sector in that trend. That's very significant. And when you juxtapose that with the fact that some of the worst social problems that we have in our community are really being impacting women, that means that these women are making a very, very dramatic and very important contribution in spite of all the odds. A lot of these women, a lot of our women are single women out of households in our community. So that's a very interesting statistic and training in light of that. So today we have the benefit of also there are 2 areas that where the fastest growing is taking place. That doesn't mean that there's not growth in other states, but there are 2 states there, and that's Florida and that's New York. And today, from Florida, we have Tomas Javier Rivera, who's also within the National Puerto Rican Agenda, heading the group of these festivals. As Dr. Melendez mentioned this morning, there are about 100 of them, and they are sort of getting together to see how they collectively can address some of the issues that particular segment of our community has. And Tomas as a witness of that trend and a participant, we would like to hear from him. Tomas.
Good afternoon. My name is Javier Rivera. I'm from San Juan, Puerto Rico, living in Orlando, Florida. I'm the promoter of the Fiesta de San Sebastián, Sunset Orlando. Sunset Orlando is the premier event for Puerto Ricans in Central Florida. This year we have 50,000 people plus attendees. Sunset is more than a festival. It's an opportunity for the Puerto Rican community to reconnect with their own tradition and culture in a family environment. The Puerto Rican community in Florida is 1 million plus and is growing. As the Puerto Rican community continues to grow, in Orlando, so the collective desire of this population to remain connected to the island and the tradition. We have introduced to the Florida market to Puerto Rico businesses by providing them with a platform to expose, launch, samples their products and services. Right now, we have the endorsement of Puerto Rican companies such as Pan American Grain, Titan Products of Puerto Rico, Don Q, Goya, Puerto Rican Tourism, Café Rico, Rivera, Carmela, Podorono, college from the island like Inter, Polytech, and G. Mendes, artisans from the island, and our local food vendors. Sunset Orlando is committed that every business, food vendor, supplier, artist, and artisan needs to be Puerto Ricans. Sunset Orlando is a perfect example of what we need to deal with the Puerto Rico economic crisis, and that is unify the Puerto Rican community through culture. We Puerto Ricans, we are well known as the happiest people in planet Earth. So we come together to sports like Monica Puig when she won the gold medal, and the Team Puerto Rico in the baseball classic. but we also come together when it's time to party, chinchorrear, y rumba. But when we need to come together as business entrepreneurs and organizations, we fall behind. As witness of the Central Florida Puerto Rican business growth, there has been an expansion of new products and franchise of the island. But we have obstacles. I want to give an example. Puerto Ricans in Florida are quite diverse, combining long-time residents with the newcomers, both from the States and from the island. There are several groups with the Puerto Ricans in Florida. One group is the natives, the second, the Northeast, and the third, those migrants directly from the island. This is a big challenge to send the message. There are different cultures, values, and identities. So yes, we are different. There are increasing efforts of the business community that utilize culture as a main venue to try to resolve this multicultural misunderstanding. A number of Puerto Rican business has set their sights on Florida, looking to capitalize on a better U.S. economy and the immigration on the island. It makes sense that if more Puerto Ricans move to Florida, then their business will follow as them. We need to unify several Puerto Rican chambers of commerce and organizations that are in the state of Florida. As we in Puerto Rico, we say, estamos al garete. We need to establish partnership with these new businesses and provide them with knowledge, strength, and development. The question is, how we can help our economic crisis in the island here from the diaspora. The best way to support Puerto Rico is to buy products from there. Puerto Rico is a very creative island. We need to identify all the new business, touch their doors, listen to them, how they can bring new ideas, involve them in what we can do to help our economy of the island. Sanse Orlando is committed to work in conjunction with the Centro, putting together all the Puerto Ricans, parade, festivals, and promoters in Florida to work together and create a network that we can utilize. Let them know that through culture, we can send the message that Puerto Rican needs to unify. This way we can help and become again the way we used to be, with that big slogan, Puerto Rico does it better. I want to say that you can leave the island, but the island never leaves you. And that is when you carry with you everywhere you go. Let's go be one, let's be united. And the same way we enjoy our team in the baseball classic, we are Team Puerto Rico. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Now we have the pleasure of having, we're here now from Florida, and as I mentioned, represents some of the growing businesses of Puerto Rican business in the country. Now we're going to introduce to you somebody who represents the women's sector, not only the women's sector, but a woman that is involved in one of the also fastest growing, or where there is more representation of Puerto Ricans in that particular industry, the health industry, Sonia. And Sonia is a New Yorker.
No, soy de Boston, Puerto.
But now you're a New Yorker too. And Sonia will give us a perspective of a local business and a entrepreneur that have already developed some sophistication in an area that is very important in the economy of this country. Sonia.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Sonia Carrero. I'm a respiratory therapist. My company is Mediquip Homecare. It's a DME respiratory company where we take care of patients in the New York area, Staten Island, and Westchester County. We take care of patients by providing them with respiratory services and the equipment. Everything that you need in a hospital setting, we set up. We have ventilators, oxygen, CPAPs, BiPAPs, for sleep apnea. We do enteral supplies, ostomy, incontinence supplies, everything that you might need when you're at home. And I'm here because I want Puerto Ricans to collaborate with each other, okay? There's a lot of issues going on here, you know, in my business that I want to express to you. And I have expressed to the Hispanic Chamber, which we're working as a group and trying to resolve these issues. But one of the issues, and I've been to Puerto Rico at the Puerto Rican Summit. I've been to Colombia, you know, and the summit there too, looking for business opportunities. And everything's falling because of this stuff. Oh, right? Many years ago. And I went to Puerto Rico for the Puerto Rico Summit, and I went to Colombia looking for business opportunities. Okay, and I'm still looking for business opportunities. I know that we contribute billions of dollars to, you know, to the United States. Okay, but we seem to be not working together. I see other communities, other nationalities, they work together. The Indians come from India, and they have already a group waiting for them. What do you need to do? Here's the money. Let's start you up. Let's go. You know? But we don't seem to do that with each other. And I wonder why. I wonder why. But my company has been facing some different issues, and I'm just going to give you an example of one so you know what we're going through. In the healthcare industry, I deal with insurance companies, with Medicaid, Medicare, you know, Blue Cross, and all the insurance companies. Medicaid has created a network of other insurance companies they call HMOs, okay, Affinity Health First and all those HMOs. What they're doing is placing their patients with these HMOs, okay? What these HMOs are doing, contracting another agency in between before they get to me. So meaning, before I had this much profit, now this is what I get, nothing. And these companies do not want to deal with small businesses. They don't. They want to deal with the big guy. I've tried to talk to them. I've been through all the legal terms and everything. They don't listen to one person, but they will listen to a group. And I'm here because if we all have a need and we get together, en la unión está la fuerza. That's what I said, you know? Frank has been helping me, trying to talk to all these persons in charge of Health First, but they're not listening, but they will soon.
Yes.
They will soon. And, you know, this is one of the challenges that I'm facing. I'm facing another challenge with Medicare, too, with the competitive bidding. The competitive bidding, meaning they gave all the contracts to big companies, too. They reduced their reimbursement rates and gave it to big companies. So the only thing I can do for Medicare that they couldn't take from me was the ventilators. Because not too many companies do ventilator patients at home. They couldn't take that away from me, and they couldn't take away the supplies. They took away the oxygen, and they took away all the durable medical equipment that I cannot do. That's another challenge. So, you know, I'm thinking, as a group, we all have needs. We can come together and see which needs we can go by one. Today, we accomplish one need. The next time, we'll do another. But we have to do it together. Because one single person cannot do it. They won't listen to one person. But they listen to all of us. They will listen because we contribute a lot to the economy. I feel like they're treating us like second-hand citizens when we are citizens. And it's not fair. It's not fair what they're doing. But the chamber is helping me. I'm a member of the Health Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber, and the chamber is helping me accomplish this. But you know, I see so many examples. I see what went on when they had the low gas prices. You know, I don't know if you were here, if you're too young, but I was here, and you know, the United States was saying, I'm gonna buy from Libya at this price. Oh, you don't want to sell it to me? Oh, I'll go to Kuwait. I'll buy it from them. But no, what they did is they have differences. But they united and they created a union called OPEC. Now the United States, there's one price, and you talk to all of us at the same time. This is what I want us to do. I want all of us to unite, and they have to talk to all of us, not one. And we can do it. We can do it. But we have to get together. We have to stop you know, thinking that you're the competition, I'm the competition. We're not competing with each other. We need to help each other, you know, to accomplish our goals, to, you know, to be able to help Puerto Rico. I was looking for business opportunities in Puerto Rico, but look what's going on here. I need to fix my problem here so I can move on. And I did find some business opportunities there in Puerto Rico that I'm thinking about, but I need to fix my problem here. And the only way we can do it is all together. This is why I reached out to Frank, because, you know, they're listening to a community, they listen to business leaders. You know, and another example, I just went home yesterday, and I found this flyer from Uber. You know that Uber was not allowed anywhere. Guess where's Uber? Everywhere. You know why? Because Governor Cuomo is helping them, because the senators are helping them. Why they're not helping us? Why they help them and not us? Why? I don't know, because we do contribute to this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Now we have Frank Garcia, who's Frank has a very interesting history. He's a third generation or fifth generation business owner in the Puerto Rican community. His grandfather was the first bodeguero in New York City, and Frank has been with his small business. I know him for desde que
cuando estaba flaco.
Era chiquito, ¿no?
When I was skinny.
And Frank is a person who have demonstrated tenacity and compromise, and is not afraid to take on issues that some people sometimes are not willing to take on, and successfully, I might add. And Frank also, right now, is one of those Puerto Ricans who has decided to work through other chambers of commerce as a means of influencing, create influence in the business community, and he will tell you what his experience and perspective is as far as Puerto Rican issues, and what he has done. His organization have done already to try to bring some of the Puerto Rican issues to the forefront. Frank?
First, I want to thank everybody for being here. This is extremely important to get the Puerto Rican and Hispanic community together to listen about economic development. Before I start, I want to thank Jose for inviting me, who's been my idol, because he's been the PBS for Hispanic TV. If you don't know, you know, he's the first person to have a public channel dedicated to the Hispanic community, and that's something that we all need to acknowledge and be very proud that we had a Puerto Rican that did that. I also want to acknowledge my new best friend, the director who's here, Edwin Medina, for allowing us to be here for the first time. Melendez, sorry. It's my ADD, what can I say? One thing is, I do want to clarify a couple of things, that I am a business owner, so you're not talking to us, the chairman of the National Association of Latino State Chambers, who represents 80% of the chambers in the United States. I got elected a year ago. I took position of the new position 4 months ago in Las Vegas, where 80 of the top chambers in the United States got together in Puerto Rico. I am still, for how long, still chairman of the New York State Chamber, a coalition of Hispanic chambers, where we represent 80,000 members between 26 chambers in New York. One of the top Hispanic chambers are part of us. I also want to acknowledge Adalis, who's head of the health chamber, who's the one that's been working with Sonia and some of the issues that she's been having. One of the things that we're well known about is raising hell. And the chamber has raised a lot of hell lately because Hispanic businesses have not got a voice. And now we were able to get from 1% of the contracts, we had Hispanic, and I don't want to mention who, elected officials that voted for Hispanics and Puerto Ricans to get 1% in the contracts, where white women were getting 37%. of it. We sued the city and we won. So because of that new law that now the governor and the mayor we oversee those contracts for the members. And so what we're doing right now is working with my counterparts in Puerto Rico. Sometimes with chaos and opportunities happen. And the opportunities that happen with us, with mayhem and chaos, we were able to join for the first time all the chambers, business organizations in Puerto Rico and all the chambers in New York, and nationally to come together for the first time with our former chairman, Ignacio Veloz, who was the chairman of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber, to have the first Puerto Rican summit that was done 2 years ago in partnership with the National Puerto Rican Day Parade. And we had 500 Hispanic businesses, the CEO of Coca-Cola in Puerto Rico and other businesses for the first time to have a conversation about economics. In that summit, for the first time, we joined forces with DC9, where we created a partnership where big painting companies, Anglo companies, are going to the island and getting $200, $300 an hour in industrial paint. And because the local businesses don't have a school to teach that, our local businesses are losing those opportunities. Ignacio Veloz, our chairman of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber, is a very powerful position, just like at my position as chairman of all the state chambers. He owned a painting company. He couldn't get contracts from big corporations or pharmaceuticals because he didn't have those licenses. And so we worked with DC9 and the union to create the first school in Puerto Rico that will be open, hopefully, God willing, by next year. And will create 4,000 jobs in the island. Why? Because we work together. My other counterparts, when I asked the state chambers to unify, we've been unification probably 20 years, but we never incorporated till a year ago when I got elected in this position. And one of the things I want to do is bring in Puerto Rico. Why? Because of all the problems there is in the island, the businesses in Puerto Rico did not want to work with us. They saw us that they had more money than us. We were inferior. I think once the crisis happened in Puerto Rico, they realized they had to unify with us. And the stuff that we're doing in Puerto Rico are incredible. We just got back from Colombia, thanks to Dali's, where we're bringing Puerto Rican businesses, bringing products from Colombia and selling it in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, in my opinion, owning a business, I'm CEO of Go Green Technologies, the first Hispanic minority-owned green copy toner business. So I'm bringing copy paper made out of sugarcane from Colombia and selling it to Xerox as a minority vendor because of laws that I helped put in that I didn't think it would benefit me and all the other members. And so before Jose cuts me off, I do want to say that our vision of what we're looking to do is to me, it's a disgrace, okay? I hear politicians talk about we need to help Puerto Rico. You know how we help Puerto Rico? One is to unify with all the state chambers nationally. My counterparts are Mexican. They don't understand what's going on. I know David tries to explain it being from California, being our former vice president of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber. David understands it. But when I explained to my counterparts, in the beginning, they didn't want to include Puerto Rico and the 20 business organizations in Puerto Rico. Myself, David, and other people lobbied my counterparts from Utah and other areas to include them. Now they're included. They have 2 votes with all the other state chambers. And so now Puerto Rico has a voice. We asked other organizations, I want to say who, that are in Washington that supposedly represent Hispanic businesses for letters. They said no. You know what? All the state chambers send letters to Congress, and that helped with that fight because you got the Republicans in Utah or you got the Republicans in Texas saying, you got a Mexican leader helping Puerto Rico. How does that happen? The Hispanics don't work together. And so, you know, me being in this position, my importance is how do we help Puerto Rico right now with the construction? Construction is very big. If you know, the construction industry in Puerto Rico, they have bonding capability of $10, $20 million. No minority business, as head of the state chamber in New York, no minority business has that capability of bonding, but they have it in Puerto Rico. So how do we help with this 30% that they say we can't? The governor says we don't have enough Hispanic contractors. how do we join forces with Hispanic contractors here that are Mexican or Latino or Ecuadorian that are in the union struggling? They don't have the capital, and partner with these Puerto Rican businesses. They have the capital, but there's no business opportunity in Puerto Rico. So our role is how we do the matchmaking. Right now, next week, we have the top Colombian IT companies coming to New York. We're going to partner up with Puerto Rican IT companies here to be able to work on doing platforms that help the community. I truly believe the only way to eliminate poverty in Puerto Rico is through this minority business programs. And I believe if we pressure the government to give us that 30% that the governor and the mayor, you know, Crespo and other elected officials that are here speaking, and Nidia Velasquez have done a good job in pushing it, but we need to push them to push harder and make sure that we get that 30% of billions of dollars in contracts. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. As I told you, Frank is somebody who is actually doing things within our business community, and we are very grateful for his work. Now, I'm going to introduce you David Ferreira. David Ferreira is I call him a very interesting and unique Puerto Rican who happens to be, have had his business career in Washington. He has worked with in Congress with a number of elected officials. He has also, he was the executive director of the Hispanic caucus of state legislators that represent over close to 500 elected officials, Hispanic elected officials nationwide. And he also, like Fran, has been one of those individuals that have worked with other Hispanic groups throughout the country and have successfully been able to orchestrate coalitions that have been able to accomplish things. Frank is going to give us a perspective as to how the Puerto Rican business community could, in light of the crisis in Puerto Rico, in light of the needs that Puerto Rican businesses have, and using the strengths and the weaknesses, what kind of vision he has to take advantage of the opportunity that this crisis can represent to us, and what we need to do. Frank, David, your turn.
Thank you, José Luis. De nuevo, muchas gracias. Buenas tardes.
Ay
bonito, but living now between Washington, D.C., San Francisco, and Seattle. I jump around. I happen to have the good luck that I have a good business, but most of my clients are on the West Coast, so it keeps me a little bit far away from good Puerto Rican food. So I'm very glad that I got to take a red eye over here and land here this morning and be able to grab some Puerto Rican dinner tonight. There are no tostones on the West Coast.
Have to change that. That's a business opportunity.
There we go. We have a business opportunity right there. So first I want to deconstruct this a little bit. First, I want to go back to the basics, because sometimes the business community seems like we don't really know what we say when we're talking about the business community. Business community is not homogeneous. It's made up of a lot of different individuals, a lot of different industries with a lot of different size levels, different levels of capitalization, and many of them have a very unique needs. So it's very hard to put them all in the same box. So they all have very varied motivations for engagement, say through networking and volunteer organizations like chambers, like what Frank provides, and or whether they end up or whether they solicit help from institutions and resources, or whether they even know what are the institutions and resources that are available to them and avail themselves of them, whether it's the SBDCs, Small Business Development Centers, or all the different, or even know what a 7A or 504 SBA loan, or what an SBIR, Small Business Incubation type VC funds are, or where to go for an angel investor. Sometimes they don't even know if they're debt equity ready. Debt equity, because businesses are not always ready to take on debt. Sometimes they don't know. They say, I want to do business with the federal government. They don't know if they want to become 8A. They don't know that 8A has a sunset. They have a certain amount of years before you graduate out of the program. And while you're in the program, you have a limit on how much personal net worth you can accumulate. So there might be a point in which you're too successful and you want to get out of the program because it limits how much net worth you have. That's a good problem, by the way. But still, it's a very varied universe. So it's kind of hard to say. So let's just say corralling the business community in any business community, but especially Puerto Rican business community, it's like herding cats. It's very much like herding cats. So then the question before us is, how do we help them? And in helping them specifically, how do we organize them for the collective benefit of both the Puerto Rican mainland businesses and Puerto Rican island businesses to help each other out or to be able to grow individually? And also, how do we provide them support? And again, when I say support, it's hard to say because, again, very unique needs. One of the analogies I like to use is the baker analogy. I have a friend that has a bakery in Puerto Rico. He's a fantastic baker. He is a horrible businessman. He doesn't know how to keep his books. His business is about to close any given day, but he makes the greatest treats. Las donas are beautiful. El bizcocho borracho, everything you can imagine. It's all fantastic. But then entrepreneurship is a complicated business. So that's why it's one of those networks. It's one of those careers that need support, that they need to support, whether you know you need it or not. We need to have the resources available to them. So because there's all these diverse interests, whether it's infrastructure, mentoring, then what we want to talk about here, and hopefully what we're starting here is only the beginning of a conversation, because this is just one very quick gathering. What we hope to kind of start using this is as a catalyst to start building more and more of a collective work to see how we can, especially as Frank said, create that island mainland Puerto Rican coordination, because we have businesses like Bird Construction in Puerto Rico that build airports, that build large, huge infrastructure projects that have market capitalizations and bonding capabilities that construction companies in the Latino community in the United States only dream of. And if we can find ways how to be able to help each other out. And there's many industry areas where I think we can try to do these matchmaking opportunities.
Food manufacturers.
Food manufacturing. Believe it or not, Puerto Rico is still one of the few places in the United States where textile manufacturing is actually useful. Well, for many buckets. Puerto Rico has also unique tax structures that allow for businesses to incorporate as a foreign entity. So that's actually what Microsoft, believe it or not, Microsoft is one of the biggest businesses in the island of Puerto Rico. But you wouldn't know it, because all they are is a bank account in a P.O. box, because that's how they keep money outside of the United States Treasury by using Puerto Rico as a foreign incorporation location. We need to utilize every tool at our disposal. And what we hope is to start creating a conversation here about how do we network, How do we coordinate? How do we bring each other together? And what are those tools that we need? Because it's going to take a lot of levers. Not everybody's going to be helped by being able to be. Sometimes it's going to be as simple as being able to provide incorporation assistance. Some people just have great ideas and would love to be able to start a business if they even knew just how to incorporate and file an LLC. They only knew how easy it is to file for an LLC, but it also depends on your state. Some states, it's like reading radio. It's like reading, setting like your DVR and reading or putting together an IKEA desk. I don't know about you. I think it's really hard, but it's sometimes it reads like one of those really crazy instruction manuals. It's hard to navigate those bureaucracies for somebody who wants to start their first novel business. It's a novel enterprise. And why should we need to capitalize? We need to capitalize on the ingenuity of our community and the incredible capacity that we have, because you know that wherever you have a group of Puerto Ricans, you got somebody with a side hustle, a great idea, and se están inventando algo. And we need to be able to try to put that together. So again, I wish I could tell you that I'm going to give you a very informed presentation, but what I actually hope to take out of this is that we begin actually a larger conversation about networking, coordination. Some of it is going to be about how do we provide chambers and help chambers provide better support, and some of it is going to be how do we help them outside of the chamber networks as well, because some of them will need that kind of help as well, who may not need a chamber or may not want to approach a chamber. So thank you very much, and I hope to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, David. It is, I would like to highlight a couple of points that were made by some people in the panel. And for instance, David keep on referring as they need support. And as you see here, there are different levels, as David said, of businesses within our community with different levels of sophistication, which needs different levels of support. So the structures that are to be created have to take into account that. I think it's very significant that the fact that organizations, academic organizations like Studies-Centro, have done this research that we have cited here today, because that helps also make the case, not only for the support of these businesses, but also for us to understand what is the condition of those businesses. We have alluded, and I want to ask to the group later on some questions about this, the fact that the Puerto Rico crisis, when I said before that have a positive thing, is that they have us here today. They have us here discussing this issue. And I want to ask Frank the first question about the fact that right now there's a fact that very few Puerto Rican in the chamber structures exist that are purely Puerto Rican. Okay, yet there are other Hispanic ethnic groups, Mexican chambers. There are Ecuadorian, Peruvian. Sonia mentioned Colombian. Why is it that we don't have a Puerto Rican, effective Puerto Rican chambers, and how important are those chambers to those communities and their home country? And I would like you to comment on that.
Look, I don't want to get in trouble with some of my women presidents that are Puerto Rican that sit on our board. I have a couple, and I don't want to get in trouble to say we need Puerto Rican chambers. We need Puerto Rican leaders on the board. And I think having more leadership in that, the Puerto Rican community, in my opinion, in New York, my grandfather used to tell me this as head of the Latin Grocery Association in the 1960s, Nazario García, used to always tell me that the Puerto Ricans were like crabs in the barrel. We take each other down. And I've had more issues with Puerto Rican leaders or politicians than the Dominican and Colombian community. They've been more supportive towards my leadership than other communities. On another sense, I have Joe Muniz, who's our president, who's Puerto Rican. We have other, Carmen Hernandez from the LGB chamber. She's Puerto Rican. We have a lot of good leaders. We have the rabbi from the Latino Jewish chamber. We have a Puerto Rican rabbi. First female Puerto Rican rabbi who got all the Jewish community here in Puerto Rico and in the States together to do business. I've never seen anybody do that before. And so we have very great leadership. We do need more opportunities for chambers in Puerto Rico, Puerto Rican chambers like there is in Florida. In Florida, I know one leader, and to me that's the leader, but there's 5 chambers. So I get in trouble when, as head of all the state chambers, I mention one leader, but there's 5. In Chicago, there's 1 Puerto Rican chamber. In New York, from the 26 chambers I represent, Ecuadorian, Colombian, Dominican, that is starting right now, we do not have a Puerto Rican chamber. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. I know that someone tried to. Here in Spanish Harlem, there was a gentleman that was bringing Puerto Rican products. His store went bankrupt. You know, I don't think we support Puerto Rican products when they come. We'll support other nationalities. We'll drink, I'm going to get in trouble with the Dominican community. We'll drink a Dominican beer, but we won't drink a medalla. And so I think those are the issues that us as Puerto Ricans, we need to start working together. Remember, when there's mayhem and chaos, there's opportunities. And I learned this from CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. They said, but chaos, how can you make opportunities? And so right now with the chaos, you got white investment firms making millions of dollars off us because they're taking advantage of the chaos. How can we unify and show the community that is Puerto Rican business community we could come together? And that's where it's very, very difficult to get all the Puerto Rican community together. I don't like this person doesn't like me. Is how can we work together?
This morning, thank you, Frank. This morning, I heard that a number of panelists were talking about creating influence or influencing in Washington, D.C. In fact, even in New York State, because there was some legislation that can be enacted in New York State that could have an impact in Puerto Rico. I didn't understand that one, but I think it's very important for us to pursue. But if the chambers or the Hispanic business community wants, the question is if the Puerto Rican business community should play a role in the conversation, as was stated this morning, that can take place, for instance, in Congress. And one example that I overheard was, for instance, trade. Should we try to push for Puerto Rico as a territory to be included in a trade legislation? Is that something that benefits Puerto Rican businesses? And if it does, how can Puerto Rican businesses, or should Puerto Rican business, the business community, be a part of that? Do we believe that we should be part of that? I would like to ask Tomas and Sonia to, and well, any one of you want to answer that one.
I'm a new business in Florida. I have no clue of all the help that the Studies-Centro we're talking about. And I just learned it. But what happened to other people that came from the island, there's no orientation, knowledge at all. You know, there's what he's mentioned, there's 5 chambers. They only want you to pay their membership, they don't help you, you know. And thank you that Frank and David opened my eyes, you know, because we need a big change in that. We need help, you know. It's very hard for us to...
So you're saying that right now you're dealing with basic stuff, yeah, survivor stuff, and reaching the deal with the level of Congress is a far...
Are you going to take questions from the audience?
Yes. Yes.
But, you know, one of the big obstacles that I have as an entertainment festival is trying to reach the national brands, because they don't listen to us. You know, they put us on the side, and we got the power of buying products, the Puerto Ricans, you know, how much money we can spend in Target, you know, Puerto Ricans, you know, but they don't help you out, you know.
In order to give one more panel if they want to comment, so we can go into the audience for questions. Anybody else want to answer that?
Well, you know, I think that wherever we can get a leader to speak for us, we should have a leader. You know, we should have a voice everywhere. Why not? You know, we contribute to this country, we can contribute to the economic growth, why not have a voice everywhere? In Congress, everywhere.
I believe Puerto Rico, and we're doing it right now with Sonia and Nelson. Nelson and Sonia, who's my counterpart from the Puerto Rican Retail Association, are bringing jeans from Colombia and selling it to Macy's as a minority-owned Puerto Rican-owned business and sell it to Plaza La America in Puerto Rico. Those are the economic, I believe Puerto Rico, and my counterpart Nelson says this a lot, Puerto Rico could be el puente, the bridge for Latin America and the Caribbean. When other people are building walls, I think Puerto Rico could build bridges to Latin America.
Okay. Any question? Okay.
So I have a not fully finished out question, so please bear with me. In your example of the shared relationships between the U.S. and Puerto Rico, where you brought up the construction, and in Puerto Rico they don't have licenses.
They have, yeah.
They do or they don't?
They have licenses they don't have the licenses to do industrial paint, but they do have bonding opportunities to be able to do construction that we don't have here.
Now, I may say this incorrectly because I'm not fully grasping it, but the way I internalize that is you would be getting U.S. or international staff to go to Puerto Rico and provide the service. But then, on the reverse of that, what are you looking to do to staff Puerto Ricans living in the island to provide them sustainable employment?
With the unions, with DC9, they're creating a school where it's going to create jobs, because right now the jobs are there. You got Johnson & Johnson, the big corporations, need Coca-Cola, Puma, gasoline that's from Venezuela. They use white companies out of California and Texas, gets $500 an hour, when local businesses like Ignacio Veloz, who's one of the top painters, can't get those contracts because they don't have that type of certification as an industrial painter. So they reach out, the business community reach out to the union here, and the union says, you know, they're not going to allow us to go into, the business community is not going to allow us to go to Puerto Rico. It's never going to happen. And so we made sure to sit down with all the chambers in Puerto Rico, and David helped me with this, to cut that deal, and with the unions to allow, and the chambers in Puerto Rico, and all the business organizations, to allow the union to open a school. And that's going to empower the local business community. In return, how we benefit in New York is that those businesses that have bonding opportunity that we don't have do the partnership here in New York, and do that partnership where we could fulfill this 30% that the governor and the mayor is talking about when contracts with the city and state of New York that are more than $20 billion worth of contracts in the state of New York.
But that's for the businesses, right? So my question is really for the inhabitants of Puerto Rico. How is that model helping the inhabitants?
Jobs, because unions will have good. You got to talk. Our members, when we go to Latin America, or when we go to any, I make sure that the people I buy from, paper, are giving living wage. In the same way, the union's going to make sure that living wage is in Puerto Rico, where the industrial. My nephew is part of the union. He does windows. He gets, for a 21-year-old, he gets $30 an hour. How many who doesn't have a college degree get and when he graduates, he's going to get $120 an hour. So this is the opportunity. We're creating jobs in Puerto Rico for those young people. That way, they can invest back in the island.
Yeah, that's an example of how the Puerto Rican community in the United States, as represented by an individual like Frank, can help create economic opportunities in Puerto Rico by training these people, bringing the parts together. That's what I said, there are different levels of sophistication within our community, and this is an excellent example to bring this union to Puerto Rico to train people to get those jobs. Those jobs are going to people in California.
$500 an hour.
But the important thing here, I think the important thing is that it is individuals like Frank, who are a Puerto Rican businessman, that has the ability and the possibility of putting that deal together. And this is an example of multiple deals like that could be happening if we are working together with Puerto Rico through these organizations on these issues. Next question?
Yeah, two things. I actually did some consulting to the state AFL-CIO and Central Labor Council about 10 years ago, and the trades division of and it's not quite so simple to set up an apprenticeship program in Puerto Rico. There were just numerous obstacles, and the tenacity with which the trade unions here pursue this is really dependent on whether or not they see an opportunity to create membership, generate membership. So that's been on and off for many, many years. But I'm curious, you talk basically about developing, creating a market among the diaspora here in the U.S. For Puerto Rican products. And that's an interesting concept, except for what products are you talking about?
Right now, the city and state and corporate America buy billions and billions of dollars of contracts. Me and David, it really is the lobbyist for the corporations that look to have that minority program and the government. What we do, we oversee to make sure the numbers are succeeded by the government and by corporate America. So just like paper, I didn't think the government of Colombia said, here's paper, can you sell it? I didn't think I was going to be able to sell it at Xerox. Again, when there's opportunities and when other things, and the paper is in areas where the FARC was operating. Now we're creating jobs in areas where there was guerrilla.
Maybe I misunderstood you. I thought you were talking about products.
I am talking about Puerto Rican products, but I'm using it as an example, okay? That in Puerto Rico, we have products. We have paint. We're working with a Puerto Rican manufacturing paint to sell to the union here. The union buys for, I think they do $80 million worth of paint. That helps the local manufacturers sell as a minority firm because Puerto Rico qualifies in the minority programs. The problem is Puerto Ricans over there don't want to get certified. Puerto Ricans here don't want to get certified. And if you don't get certified,
using the minority business enterprise model as
that's correct.
In its application, Puerto Rican businesses doing.
That's correct.
Which would probably be more service-based as opposed to product-based because there are a lot of competitive disadvantages.
No, Walmart is buying Puerto Rican products right now and putting in stores nationally. We helped on that. You got David that helped Walmart.
Like what? I mean, give me some example of products. When I was a kid, I remember we used to get our gandules were brought in from Puerto Rico, and our produce was brought in from Puerto Rico. But I'm not aware of any of these
let me try
being necessarily available anymore.
Let me, I understand where you're coming from, and one of the things is, a fact is that our community is migrating to the United States. I'm bringing with them the culture and their taste. We have seen that in the Mexican community, in the Dominican community, and usually those products comes with that migration. We are starting to see in Florida, okay, companies like El Mesón opening very successfully throughout Florida. Eventually they want to come to New York. We're seeing a number of companies, a number of products that are being now developed in Puerto Rico that are making their way to the States. You're right, we still have, to my surprise, I thought that there would be more products like that we can import. For instance, coffee. I thought that we have a tremendous amount of coffee. Puerto Rico cannot supply its own demand of coffee, which is a problem.
And legally, it has to supply the local market before it can.
Exactly. But then, that's an issue of the government there and the people there not putting emphasis where they should, which is something that we can have a conversation with. Yet, there is an emerging young community in Puerto Rico that is very much involved right now, and this is for me the future of Puerto Rico in the agricultural area.
Absolutely.
And trying to address that issue. Okay? That group, that sector, we must find ways to encourage and to nudge them to continue doing that, not only so they can provide for the island, because there's a market in the island, but they can export as well.
Which means that there's a lot of legal infrastructure that needs to go into it, because one of the problems with bringing coffee from Puerto Rico here is that the cost is so exaggerated that you know, you're flying it over basically. You're not shipping it, so that it has to be competitive on the premium market. Fairway is one of the few places that occasionally sells Jalgona, the beans and stuff, and they get about $30 a pound at the retail level, which isn't bad when you consider the costs involved in doing it. So that's a problem in Puerto Rico, and I thought perhaps what we were going to hear today was the business community focusing on those problems and how the diaspora can be instrumental.
But we're doing that right now with the Puerto Rican Summit. We brought the president of one of the largest manufacturers of food in Puerto Rico. He's the CEO of Coca-Cola in Puerto Rico. He's bringing coffee. We helped him get into Walmart. He's got other products that he's bringing. We put him with buyers here. The supermarket association's helping on that.
I think one of the things that we're all alluding to here is that it's about being able to provide both support and a market for Puerto Rican companies to grow, because there's actually Federal Reserve of New York put together a great survey last year of Puerto Rican businesses, and one of the things that came out of it is that 54% of Puerto Rican businesses say that they are having a declining business revenues. They're seeing a shrinking market for their products or services, and that corresponds with the shrinking market and in the shrinking economy in the island. And we can't help as business owners right now, other than maybe through advocacy, if we can mobilize in that end to deal with the issues related to debt and debt servicing and debt restructuring and the things that are putting negative pressure on the economy in Puerto Rico and have been. But we can try to see what we can do to provide support for those businesses, whether it's supporting the agriculture, the new nascent agricultural movement in Puerto Rico, which is fantastic. It's a new movement that will hopefully make Puerto Rico less dependent on imports. Puerto Rico is a net importer of food. It could very much be self-sustaining or an exporter of food products. Why is that the case? Well, you know, unfortunately, who remembers the Ron Brown Tyson's chicken incident in the early '90s when our photosanitary laws in Puerto Rico, the photosanitary laws in Puerto Rico were trumped by the U.S. Department of Commerce because they said you have to accept very old frozen chicken from the United States. Because we consume mostly dark. Puerto Ricans in the island mostly consume dark meat. The United States consumes mostly white meat. They wanted to dump all their frozen chicken in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico had very high photosanitary standards. So there you go. Torricos, Picú end up losing half their market share overnight. You know, so we need to find ways how we can support each other, and that means not just creating markets and providing capital support, but it means us here domestically supporting them and supporting them in state capital, supporting them in Washington, D.C., wanting to be able to provide federal resources for better, like for instance, I just want to finish this out, which is right now, Puerto Rico gets SBDC funding just like we have SBDCs just like anybody anywhere else, but we under participate in SBA 504 and 7A loans, which are the type of loans that help businesses grow and expand. We have to find ways how to be able to help that, because in the end, this is a conversation about untapped resources and untapped potential.
Yes, this is a very interesting question that have led to a number of issues, but as David said before, this is the beginning of a conversation. And as you can see here right now in this question alone, there are a lot of issues that are raised. And before I let the gentleman speak, I would like to add something else. I didn't say who I was and what I do. My company, Caribbean Strategic Partnerships, is a company that is bringing U.S. businessmen and Puerto Rican businessmen to Cuba to explore business opportunities. In doing so, I'm becoming very familiar with what is needed in Cuba, what do Puerto Rico has to offer, and if Puerto Rico have something to offer to Cuba, believe me, it has something to offer to the United States as well. And I'm learning about some companies in Puerto Rico that not necessarily produce the raw materials, but they assemble things in Puerto Rico, taking things from different places and create a unique product. Now they're marketing to other places. We could be a conduit to bring that to the U.S. And in fact, there is a company that I know now, which is in the this industry, like call centers, okay? That now because of the tax code, they have a unique opportunity to present themselves in the United States to market that can give them an edge in the U.S. market, as opposed to other companies that are dealing from offshore. So there are opportunities that are coming out that way, that an organization here that is very much in tune with legislation, both at the state and the national level, can tweak some of this legislation to create opportunities so that this business, both here and there, can benefit from. But like Debbie said, this is just a beginning of a conversation that we are having, but we hope to be able to get there, hopefully with the assistance of organizations like the center, because we need the information to be able to make the cases for what we're talking about here. But now I'm going to let you.
Mine is a very simple question. I just want to give you an example. For Christmas, I said, look, I'm going to be, I'm going to be I want to be a conscious Puerto Rican buyer. I want to buy presents for my family, for Puerto Rican-owned businesses. It's basic, right? I want to. There has to be some kind of mechanism that I can go online, okay, and I can say, yeah, okay, I want to purchase medical equipment from a Puerto Rican-owned business. I mean, to me, this is a revelation today.
For me too. We were making a comment and laughing here about that.
You have, by the way, 2 new customers.
So you have to do, that's what we're talking about and laughing on the side, because you had 2 new customers.
I used to love Ben Gates but anyway, but I'm just saying, just something as simple as that. I mean, where I know I want to be, say if I want to bank, when I do my banking, I'm tired of giving it my money. If I get my pension, I got to deposit it into, white-owned firms or white-owned banking institutions. I mean, I get tired of that. I want to be able to buy, if I want to, and I live like in the state of Maryland, we have a growing Hispanic population there. And so that, like I said, I want to vote with my dollar. Okay, and I want to be, because I'm not a businessman per se. I was a civil servant, I worked in the public, but I still want to be a conscious buyer. And is there a way or an opportunity or a mechanism that we can?
I want to respond to that very quickly, because I've been thinking about this for a while, and I spoke with a number of my friends, elected officials in other states, and I was asking how the community here feels, how your constituents, about the crisis in Puerto Rico. He said very sad, and they don't know, they don't know what to do and what to help. But you pointed it specifically, as some of them were telling me, people feel that if they do something that help Puerto Rico, and buying something might be a way. So we discussed, I had a conversation with, in the private administration, with el Centro de Exportación de Puerto Rico. And I was telling them, a concept. Look, we have a lot of Puerto Rican organizations throughout the United States. And what do you think if we can use the technology, as you mentioned, to bring people to those centers, and be exposed to a presentation about Puerto Rican products, okay? And I mentioned this to somebody, I think it was in Rochester, New York. And she told me something. She told me, that's an excellent idea. Because, I have access to about 15 bodegueros that we help them here. We provide them services. I will bring those bodegueros. If they send me some products to share, and I'll tell those bodegueros, I want you to stock those products so the community can buy them here. So this is a good example of using technology, using a system mechanism that are not even businesses, that are Puerto Rican organizations that can be the promoter of those.
My children are millennials.
Well,
My children
they don't even need those centers. They can go online.
Don't do anything unless they get
Online.
I could call them till I die on the phone, and the only thing they respond to is a text.
What?
I just want you to their mentality is totally different.
There's a social media panel going on in this event today, and I hope that they are addressing that issue as well. But then this connection between this panel and that panel, this is an opportunity to make it. But you're right on the money there. We need, all our community needs to be engaged, and there is an opportunity for everybody at every level to be engaged.
What I just want to say is how many, because I see some students here, how many, if you're a student or if you're a business owner, are in the IT or technology? Anybody here? Okay. No? Nobody.
And in
okay.
social media. Though.
Social media. Okay. So if you're in social media, you understand technology. It's very easy to create this web.com, and UPS has offered our members 40-50% discounts. And because they went to Puerto Rico and heard the chambers speak, and it says because of the Jones Act and all that, it's expensive for shipping. You know what? UPS was willing to bring down the rates to help those businesses in Puerto Rico bring products to the state and set up websites. But we need young people like yourself that are in social media and all that, understand to create a website where the Dominicans are doing. The Dominicans have a website called buydominican.com, and they're selling Dominican products, food products, and different dulces. And we're not doing that right now. This is where you guys have to see the opportunities in business to be able to do that.
So
I think you have to remember the context of what we're talking about. In Puerto Rico, we, the people who are here in the diaspora, we have always been going after Puerto Rican goods, and we love it when we find it and we have it accessible, and it has become less accessible. Mm-hmm. I think we have to understand that Puerto Rico is coming from a different type of history. You're asking a whole community of Puerto Ricans to become entrepreneurs, where in fact every business that has been, major business that has prospered in the island has not been Puerto Rican. I mean, I remember when the environmental cleanup companies made mega bucks in Puerto Rico. Why? Because of the strip mining, the copper strip mining, so they made lots of money. Presumably that would have been left over for the island people to continue doing that work and maybe enjoying the profits that should be theirs anyway, and that didn't happen. The same thing happened with all the computer companies who land all over and constructed buildings to manufacture computer parts. What we thought was eventually they will leave, and if they leave, then we have all these technicians that could service Latin America and the Caribbean. But that wasn't made possible because of the relationship between the island people, entrepreneurs, and the people that came in with special benefits, and then they left. Yeah, I could talk about Avon manufacturing, about Haynes. I could talk about a million companies that have made mega bucks in Puerto Rico, have used the island brain power, because believe me, we have more chemists, and we have more engineers, and we have the best heart surgeons. We started to produce businessmen if the opportunity and the structure was created for them.
I think you're bringing up a very good point.
Yes.
You know, one of the basic things One of the basic
Jose
things.
Luis is another example
Yeah.
of things that are very possible by our people. So it's not, there's nothing wrong with the people, there's nothing wrong with the lack of imagination. I think the structure is at fault. There's no structure that would enable this to happen. And believe me, I think that, as a Puerto Rican, I can at least say that I have a feeling that any Puerto Rican in the United States is willing to contribute to the growth of some kind of economic system. And Jose Luis, seriously, all the stuff that you guys mentioned about the agricultural stuff, that, it's not about plopping stuff in Puerto Rico, it's about seeing what the islanders can produce and what is in their passion to make it happen and facilitating that.
But we're doing that right now. We're in the first time communication with our counterparts in Puerto Rico. They've never wanted to communicate with us before.
That's right.
And that was the biggest hard thing. Now I have conference calls with my counterparts every 3 days.
It's a new era. It's a new era.
It's because of the chaos in Puerto Rico. Right now, the people that are making money right now, the government has no money, but the business community, speaking to my counterparts, they're making money. They said, you know what? We have the money. The government doesn't have money, but we're still selling goods.
Look, I think that we have to start with a different, perspective.
Exactly.
You
Can
know,
if I may, ma'am.
Try and partner Puerto Ricans with other people that are doing the business. I think we have to nurture the talent in the island and encourage the development that's appropriate for the island.
Ma'am, that's absolutely true, because one of the things that 60% of Puerto Rican businesses are micro enterprises, are less than 10 employee size operations with less than $250,000 in annual revenue. 38% of them are actually, and 38% total are under $500,000 in annual revenue. So what we need to talk about, we can talk about the big business collaborations, but we also need to talk about how do we get back to the fundamentals of promoting entrepreneurship, providing them the support structures, helping them become debt equity ready, helping them be able to promote their products, market them, export them, transport them, do what we can. And one of the things, and by the way, one thing that I heard today, which was beautiful, which is just like if there's an earthquake, you donate, or a hurricane, you donate blood. Right now is the time to buy. That's the greatest thing we can do if caring about our folks and our lineage and our families and the family members we have back there, because we have to grow the economy, and growing the economy is not going to happen just because you want it to happen. You actually have to put sweat equity into it.
A lot of people have said that, in New York especially, we're the businessmen, Puerto Rican businessmen, we used to own the bodegas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are no bodegas, we don't own bodegas because we don't own them anymore. We're in a different economic and state of existence that is, maybe we'll own the supermarkets, I don't know. But maybe we're going to the universities and becoming doctors, and it's knowing the population and being, conscious of what the content of it is within that historical perspective. And I don't think by telling people you got to become a businessman, it's going to happen. I think that we have to be more sensitive to the island's condition and what it can produce and what people are feeling passionate about.
I would like to interject here, because one of the things that was asked this morning, they're expecting this panel to come with the recommendations. And I'm hearing from all of you, in some way, some recommendations that we should, like what you said, I think we should fashion that into a recommendation that we propose to the rest of the group. But before we do that, I want to highlight something that was mentioned in passing, but it's important for us to understand. There is a barrier between Puerto Ricans here and Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico that historically have taken place, whether we like it or not, but it's a fact. And unfortunately, it has affected the possibility of doing business together. And I'll give you a very good example. The Dominican Republic does not have, they have a barrier too, but it's not as high as Puerto Rican has. And right now, a lot of Dominican business in the United States are doing business with Dominican Republic. In fact, the whole agricultural production of the Dominican Republic pretty much is being distributed in the United States, okay, and others. And they're looking more how to deal with that. They recognize the importance of the diaspora at the level that I heard Lionel, the former president, saying, you represent so much for our country that I'm going to extend your nationality to the 5th generation as a means to recognize their importance, okay? And he did, through legislation. I also going to create in the legislature elected positions so that each Dominican community, whether they're in Europe or in the United States, is represented in the Dominican Republic. That for me was a very important message to reach out. He went further. He was about creating opportunities to finance homes for people all that wanted to come back and retire in the Dominican Republic. In other words, they have a whole infrastructure to make those connections and make that reconnection.
It's called a sovereign nation.
You don't have to be a sovereign nation.
It's able to develop its economy. Its leaders can go to Colombia. Its leaders can go to South America. Its leaders can go to Europe to develop trade and
But there's additional barrier.
Government officials can't do that.
There's an additional barrier, and I would say it's almost a colonial mentality barrier. I remember going back to when I was at the United States Hispanic Chamber. I remember having some United States-based Latino-owned businesses and Puerto Rican-owned businesses that provide services, whether it's legal services or actually some of them actually do high-level financing and financial restructuring consulting, and they wanted to go to Puerto Rico to be able to bid for contracts with the Puerto Rican government and Puerto Rican government agencies. Puerto Rican government agencies wanted the widest owned, most highest prestige firm, and give us the firm that helped restructure the Greece debt. Don't you want a firm that is equally capable and competent and is going to invest their passion and soul into this, that they were happy to go into a contract almost upside down just to be able to grow their business and also to be able to invest in growing the business relationship? But it didn't happen. But we have to use the crisis as an opportunity.
That's right.
In that I think a lot of that is out the door. It can be out the door right now. The last vestige of that was the airport privatization to a European firm, and we can now start talking about you want to grow the economy. Let's utilize the most untapped, capable resource that we have, which is the Puerto Rican community itself.
By the way, that's happening in Puerto Rico. I live in Puerto Rico most of the time right now, and I see that change. It's little by little. They're recognizing that Puerto Ricans in the United States, in fact, some of them said openly, the only thing that we have muscle to try to deal with Congress is our Puerto Rican community in the United States, because they realize in Puerto Rico that they're powerless. So that's something. That's something that, like David just said, we have to use into an opportunity. How do we do that? But can you frame other recommendations? We're going to try to frame a recommendation.
I've been hearing that there's a problem with transportation. We're getting Puerto Rican goods and products into the States and elsewhere, right? When I grew up, my father had a business both in Chicago and here where he bought the gandules. They moved
Los gandules que quiere el señor.
Hasta el guido, pero ya no se consigue el guido, into the States. But at that time, there were things in place that having to do with shipping. There was Trans-Caribbean, which was part of American Airlines, which no longer exists. I no longer use American Airlines. I refuse to book a flight on American Airlines because they don't support us, yet they get a lot of business from us. And we need to acknowledge these businesses that have acknowledged us in the past, are supporting us, and will continue to support us and hold us responsible. My brother was a Microsoft key stakeholder to bring Microsoft into Puerto Rico. But we also need to hold those corporations responsible and accountable, because those entities need to be paid for their expertise as much as they are here in the States.
If I could answer that question very quickly. We're working with UPS and other corporations to be able to help that, because that's what our counterparts were asking for in the island. It's about hearing our counterparts in Puerto Rico what they need and listening to them. Our job is to help create businesses. The young lady left and she says, oh, the chamber only wants to care about having people create, the businesses. We deal, fortunately, I have more members and with less services for the members in all the chambers nationally. The government is cutting our spend when it comes to economic money. I have the women's chamber here, got cut. She did the only one that does certification and helps in that. So we're getting cut, and we have more and more businesses starting because corporate America is not hiring. What is our community doing? Starting their own business, the easiest way to do it. And so what I think our role right now is how do we help the businesses that are now in there and help get Sello Rojo Arroz. They're here. They're selling. And they're very successful right now. And what we're doing with that, when we do the Puerto Rican Summit in November here in New York, the CEO of that company is coming down to tell us how he's doing it and how he's making profitable. Just like the CEO of Coca-Cola and the CEO of Banco Popular came up to our other summit. When we were in Puerto Rico last year, we had almost, I think, 1,000 businesses from Puerto Rico come to listen to us.
But just to add to that, and to add to your point, which I think is beautiful, that information doesn't come to us. Right? So once we leave the summit,
but you take my card and we'll add you to the database of the chamber.
But I guess my point is, the only time I buy Puerto Rican products here in New York is once a year when there's an event in the community college in the borough that I live in.
Right.
And I go and there's people who fly in from Puerto Rico and they sell things. But other than that, I have no knowledge of, products in Puerto Rico that I can buy. I don't know what
That's the purpose.
That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing here. That's why we're having this conversation, because there is that need. And that's true, because it needs to be able to be fluid and transparent, because in the end, this is we're casting out a really wide net.
We need a Buy Puerto Rico campaign.
You know what? I want to hug you. I want to hug you. I think today we came with a very novel,
in Puerto Rico concept. There is, but it's only limited to Puerto Rico. It doesn't reach. Yes. Hecho en Puerto Rico. I think we are.
Let me say something real quick.
Yeah, good.
In Florida, we have Puerto Rican products. They said this company is called Titan, and Maria Titan, right? They make a network. They have 80 products that they put everything in one container. So they help them out, and they and then they distribute to the market. Why don't you don't know about it? Because they don't get any help. They have done their themselves. But there's a lot of products.
I think there's
Cameo.
Another question?
All the cereals from the Piraguas, they got it.
The only way I know about, I'm sorry, I don't mean to joke, but the only reason why I know about the Puerto Rican product is one, because I have family in Puerto Rico who have small businesses in Oregon. And two, because I follow on Instagram and on Facebook Puerto Rican driven, pages that give me little highlights here and there. But it's very disappointing that I can't go on Google and say, hey, where can I find Chico stick from Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So that is
You're going to help me with the recommendations.
Of course.
All right. T-shirts.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I want you to know, because this gentleman needs to ask a question.
He has a question.
And
we will end with that.
She was saying, because she mentioned that you told her, well, give me your card and I'll put you on our list. Will you be getting all the people emails from the summit here?
Yes.
That, and then going back to what this gentleman was saying, something like buy Puerto Rican goods. That'll, as soon as somebody sees that in their email, buy Puerto Rican goods, and then see your email from the summit, they connect the dots, and that starts to change reaction.
We're going to take your input and fashion a recommendation tomorrow for the plenary as part of this panel.
Right.
And we have already taken the gist of your comments, and fashion into 1 or 2 recommendations.
And thank you so much, because all these recommendations are fantastic, and I think one of the underserved comments was actually from the gentleman over here, which was things where how can we support each other and in areas that we couldn't have normally conceived of, like transportation, and transportation costs is one of them. Believe it or not, Trump for once may actually be good for something. Because, believe it or not, I mean, I'm in shock that I'm actually going to say this. He might actually be the one person that might help us break the Jones Act requirements on maritime shipping regulations for Puerto Rico that raise the costs almost 300% for Puerto Rico to ship. Because we're required to use the U.S. U.S. flag vessels for shipping. So that means that if a boat from the Dominican Republic wants to ship products to Puerto Rico, first they have to go to Jacksonville, Florida, unload, then they have to put it in the dock, review, then put it in an American ship, come to Puerto Rico. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
But I wouldn't bet on Trump doing anything.
But he hates unions. He hates unions, and the only reason that it still lives is because of maritime shipping unions.
The maritime trades are, they've been very powerful on
And believe me, it hurts me to say that because I'm a card-carrying SEIU member, but still, but this is one where I put the economy of the island ahead of unionists.
The level of proposal. I'm going to leave, so let me just leave you with 2 things. The Buy Puerto Rico thing is actually a kind of a good PR thing. I don't think it's a substantive thing that's going to change the economy of Puerto Rico, but I think it can be a kind of mobilizing, a kind of casting awareness on things, and I think that's probably a good thing. But beyond that, I think if we're talking in the context of where Puerto Rico is today, the economic crisis, where its economy is, I come down on the side of notion that Puerto Rico really has no economy at this point. It's bankrupt. There's no way out of bankruptcy in the immediate future until a real economy is put in place. Now, someone suggested an economy similar to that in Miami, and I agree. As a pivotal trading intermediary, as a banking center, as a service center, I think that's where. Manufacturing, listen, we can talk all the nonsense about manufacturing. Puerto Rico's never going to be a manufacturing country again. Forget about it. That's not going to happen. And another way that we can help has the Chamber, for instance, taken a position against the notion of reducing the minimum wage, which was proposed when Promesa was
We
first.
did.
And you took a position against it, I hope.
Yes.
Okay.
Our counterparts
Because
did
what's
not.
going on now
Our
is the
counterparts in Puerto
purchasing
Rico.
power of people in
But
Puerto
you understand,
Rico
the
is-
Puerto Rican chambers had a different side over there. And we said here, and he knows this, we felt one side, they felt another side. So it's us working together as chambers saying, you know what, we need you to not be against that. They thought it was good giving young people less money than everybody, and I'm against that. But my counterparts in Puerto Rico who own the businesses, who do very well in Puerto Rico, okay, because there's still money in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, the government's bankrupt, like my counterpart in Puerto Rico keeps on reminding me, but there's still businesses functioning, very successful businesses. You know,
not for long, not for long.
Idalis.
Idalis, and that's the last one, please.
Okay, my name is Idalis. I guess that I'm the only one Colombia, not Puerto Rico. So I just hear you, and this is very common for all the country. The rest of the part of the Chamber of Commerce, it's not the same situation. But I think the point or the kick is the same. Continue work together. I'm here like 11 years ago only, and I have my small business, and I raised my business alone. But I realized when I invite friends, like 5 years ago, from one of my small meetings, you know, and then offering him this recognition for his work and everything. So that day, I knew about the Chamber of Commerce. I didn't know before. Right. That's a good point for you. I didn't know before. So how I grow? I grow the Chamber of Commerce. I just started to grow for all the meetings and every day when new people, this is the idea.
Bueno, yo no creo que nosotros manteniendo a la gente en contacto es
We have to do our research, we have to participate, we have to cooperate with the other company, with the other community, and it's incredible.
Because he's the local contact.
And it worked very good. We have to be positive, we have to be always open-minded, and we have to work always together. What is the problem? The big problem, we are very selfish. We only think in our benefit and we forgot the rest.
Yes.
And everyone has problems because nobody is perfect. We get mistakes every day. But how we can resolve that? Working together. This is a really good point for Sonia today. And Sonia, it's a really good point. But Sonia is Puerto Rico. Why we cannot help her? Because I'm not Puerto Rico? No. We have to work all together because today is Sonia and tomorrow is me and then is you. So
it's also bigger than that because what has not been addressed here today in this panel is aside from the business aspect, there's a trust issue here, right? You're dealing with people who have no power, they have no voice.
Todo el mundo firma. Todo el mundo firma.
Did everybody sign?
So there has to be outside. One of my questions to them was, outside of just coming as the Chamber of Commerce, who are you coming with to deal with the social, that, you know, the lack of trust issues?
But that's where we're working with other organizations like the union that normally the chambers used to be at odds with. We never worked with the unions. They have the community trusts the union because that's the labor.
Tengo todas tarjetas de todo el mundo excepto la mía.
We work with the unions and that's giving us credibility in the community.
Sí, le pongo mi información.
But I was criticized by a lot of people, my counterparts, why did I do that? And now all the state chambers are working with the unions now because of what we did in New York.
That's great.
And I want to pick your brain. And I have a brilliant son who I'm going to connect with him, who does Cuban. And San Lorenzo, soy natural. Bueno, soy natural de Santurce, pero mi familia de San Lorenzo.
In fact, if you have land and you're thinking about what you can do, especially in a rural area, San Lorenzo, I'll connect you with Elvis Cordova, who's the former Undersecretary of Agriculture for Rural Development. He's right now doing advisories for how to help grow the rural economy in Puerto Rico. I'll happily put you in contact.
Right now we're talking about...
And so the union is...
I'm glad to meet you, Paul.
A pleasure.
Encantada.
Un placer. Salud, José. Bueno, pueden seguir hablando.
Perdone, no sé qué está preguntando. Bueno, la Cámara de Comercio Hispana de los Estados de Washington, de Nueva York, is having their un evento aquí en noviembre.
Va a ser en el mes de noviembre. El centro va a convocar otra reunión tipo como esta para discutir eso y de hecho, de acuerdo a lo que se ha discutido aquí, frame. O sea que van a haber varias conversaciones que se van a estar dando. Yo espero que ustedes... Frank, yo creo que dejaron allí la firma. Aquello no es la firma. Oh. Aquello es.
Bueno.
¿Dónde está? Dame aquí para tomarle foto.
So that benefited me because I got a discount from UPS. Right. So I don't pay as much now.
That's it.
Well, we're working on a lot of stuff to be able to help the business community. And we're looking to do workshops here at Hunter College and Brooklyn College to educate the business owners.
Okay.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming here today.
And I
No,
hope
no te
that we
preocupes,
have
Ferreira. Even though